Welcome to yet another ham radio video. My name is JKQ4DUX. Take a walk with me in the park. We're going to talk about using the Pota Performer for emergency communications. First off, this is bloopers. I'd first like to say that this is the long version. So a lot of this will be just me talking as I walk through the park here. Talking about why you'd want to do this. If you want to cut right to the how-tos, there's going to be a couple other videos. You can take a look at the link. I'll put the cards up. One will be for how to do VHF and UHF. The other one will be how to do 80-meter NVIS. So with that out of the way, I'd like to make a couple disclaimers. So when I use the term Pota Performer, just know I'm using that in a very general sense. I know some of this video is talking about NVIS, and the Pota Performer is a vertical antenna which has a low takeoff angle, which is not what you want for NVIS. So just to clear that up, I'm using it in a general sense because I think that if you're a portable operator like me and you already have the Pota Performer, something similar, this is just about how to take what you already have and do something new with it, or how to do something that you might need to do in an emergency. So with that being said, let's talk about some of the situations where this may come in handy. Now, most of the time, the emergency situations, disasters or whatnot, a lot of times is weather related. Obviously hurricanes, tornadoes, storms, that sort of thing. So if you're sheltering in place, you're just going to stay put, but perhaps your antenna blew down, whether that's 2-meter or HF or whatever. This may get you up on the air and running fairly quickly. A 2-meter HT or a 144 dual band or tri-band is going to be a great option, but that doesn't always work for everybody. Maybe you're a little out of range for an HT to hit your local repeater. Maybe there's some obstruction that you can't get to it. So being able to use like a higher power, like a mobile radio with 35, 45, 50, 80 watts and a fairly good size antenna is going to get you there. So I was able to make 2 meters work with my Chameleon whip, 17-foot, and the Pota Performer mount. Let's just take a look at that video. I did a short clip of what I was able to make work. There may be multiple ways to do that, but let's just take a look at the clip. I'm using the Chameleon 17-foot whip. I think the length I have here at the moment is 134, but you may find a lot of different lengths that you can get to work. You'll just have to experiment with that, and depends on the situation. This is quite of an odd thing here. That is the challenge, is getting this thing, building some type of ground plane or some network to make that work. What I did, this is what I use for my 12 meters, and there's 2 wires. So I wrapped one direction, the other one the opposite way, tied it down here. I was able to get about 1.2 to 1 on 146 megahertz. Another thing that did work, and you can make a standard ground plane. You know, we've already got these holes here and they're indexed, 3 of them fairly equally. Get your measurements online. This is just wire, but you could use a lot of different things, do a ground plane that way. Otherwise, I found this to work fairly good too, but it was a little clumsy. I used to use this to ground my Wolf River coils set up. It did work, a little bulky and not really the easiest to deal with, but I will be experimenting, possibly that we get some other type of a system that works good. but don't be afraid to deploy this. This should get up fairly well, and just another tool in the toolkit for emergency communications, especially if you've already got a mount like this. You can build this mount for about $30. I have a video on that, just how to do this exactly. It works very well. Another option is to use a mag mount, and I know this is not really a Pota performer, but if you're going to go on 2 meters, you gotta just mag mount this on the top of your vehicle, extend your whip to whatever length you need. I was able to make that work and tune up very well also. So there you go. It's really not that difficult, and like I said, there are a few different ways you can go as far as creating a ground plane or something like that, but that may save the day sometime. And you can also use it, like I said, with a mag mount. I was able to make that tune. So it's just part of being prepared, is knowing what you have and what will work in advance before you need it to work. Now, one thing that I'm not going to talk about, the how-tos, is the standard operation of the Pota performer. Typically 10 through 40 meters is most common. I'm sure if you're already a portable operator, if you're already familiar with the antenna, there's no need to go into how to set it up. There's plenty of that information out there, and you probably already know that yourself. But I will talk a little bit about the use case of that. The 2 meter and the 80 meter NVIS is going to get you that local and regional communication. And we'll throw the 70 centimeter too. I just tend not to think of that because we don't have a local repeater. We just got a 2 meter, and that's what we use most here. But in a thing like a hurricane, the hurricane watch net runs typically on 20 meters and 40 meters. So what you would be using these bands for would be either relaying information to things like that, nets, or communicating at a greater distance. Or maybe it's digital modes. Maybe you can do WinLink or send some emails, and that's something that I'm not very familiar with, but I hope to learn here in the coming year or two. But that can be a very, very valuable thing. We learned, unfortunately, the hard way last year in this region, not ourselves particularly, but in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, some of those states that were hit pretty hard with hurricanes last year. All of those things that we're talking about today came into play. And you know, the big one was, you know, the local repeaters and that sort of thing. But many messages were sent digitally, and you can do that 20 meters, 30 meters, 40 meters. That's probably your go-tos. But I was surprised to find out at our local club, back in the day, and I think that was middle 90s, I think there was a flood event or something like that, and I wasn't around here at that time. I was living somewhere else. But they used radiograms, and they had a phone patch system, and anyway, however they did it, our little local club sent over 1,000 messages of, you know, so and so is okay, and just relaying information. This was before the days of cell phones being everywhere and everybody had one. I mean, they were around, but not too common at that time. But anytime there's any sort of disaster, we want to contact our loved ones, let them know the situation, and they want to hear about that too. So the main bands of 10 through 40, and specifically 20, 30, 40, will probably be your go-to bands. So the next topic is how to use the Pota Performer mount, and by that I mean the PVC pipe like I use. And if you want to check out how I built that, here's a link to that video, and that's very easy to do. Just about anyone can do that. It'll only cost you about 30 bucks. But I'm using that mount. I'm discarding the whip, and I'm using horizontal wires. So basically the only thing the mount is doing is creating a feed point and starting you at about 4.5 feet. So let's take a look at that. So this is what you will need, mostly just basic items. Of course, you'll want the PVC mount, or a tripod would probably work as well. I do have an isolator choke here. Whether you need that or not is a different discussion, but I'm running it anyway because I usually do. Obviously, you'll need coax. That's a given. You're gonna need about 4 stakes minimum. I do have more. If you do have more than 4, that would be helpful. You're gonna need 2 lengths of wire. Now this is 18 gauge. This is the BN Tech Co silicon coated wire. That's what I'm using. I guess any wire would do, but I will give you the measurements for this specific wire, but that depending on the type of wire you use, those measurements may not work. So be advised on that. You will need to do your own testing and tuning. These are just the stakes I normally use to mount the PVC pipe. I've got an analyzer here. You need something at least to be able to check the SWR. But let's get set up. So what we have here, instead of screwing on the vertical whip, this is just a bolt. And because the hardware store I went to didn't have a bolt short enough, I'm using a nut for a spacer. But I got a ring terminal big enough to fit over that 3/8. So this bolt, if you're heading that way to the hardware store, this is 3/8 by 24, which is about the most common for antenna whips. So we're just going to be running one this way, and then where we usually connect our counterpoise, we're going the opposite way. So I'll put the camera down, you'll see just how long this thing really is. Alright, we've got everything set up here, so let's just take a walk, show you how long this thing actually is. Now this is over 120 feet. You're probably going to need 130 feet, maybe even more, but I just bought 150, and I will take the measurement here, but I've got approximately 20 feet between the stakes. And people have said that this will actually work just laying on the ground, but this is kind of the standard thing. And of course, if you can get the center up higher and make it more of an inverted V, it will work even better. But you'd be surprised how good this actually does work. So I rolled the tape out here, and what I got was just over 56 feet. So I have the K2 hooked up. This thing receives very well. I do have a clip of using it on Parks on the Air. With the band conditions, with 80, especially if weather's in the area at certain times of the year, it can be hard to break through the noise of the band with a low power radio. I was able to make contacts with between 5 and 10 watts, but I did try it with my base station, and 100 watts. I got a very good report from a guy about 20 miles away. But here, we'll just take a listen to, I think these are within the state, or the region at least. But pretty good audio. You know, a lot of these guys are running power amplifiers and all that. We do have power lines up here. But yeah, it does work. It definitely works. This could come in handy. All it really would cost you, if you already got the setup, You know, 150 feet of wire on Amazon was like 36 bucks, and a couple hours one afternoon or evening, get this set up, throw it in your kit or your pack or wherever you need to keep it, because it could come in handy one day. So as you can see, that will work in a pinch. It is a fairly effective way. Hopefully you never have to utilize that, but just one thing I found out that did work that I want to pass on to everyone. You never know when you're going to need it. Hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please leave a comment, subscribe, and like the video. And I will see you on the air soon. You've watched yet another ham radio video, and this is Jay, KQ4DUX.